Well, hello there. It's Mrs. Coli. I hope you're having a great day. Today, I thought I would focus my remarks and my ideas and my lessons for you in regards to effective math teaching practices, and a lot of this coming from the NAEP. And we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail very soon. So, I don't know about you, but I've been teaching for about 15 years. And part of being a good, I guess, professional educator is to constantly seek more knowledge from the experts out there and be able to take what we learn and apply it, right? That's what we all try to do to increase our effectiveness as a teacher. And so I always enjoy my professional development that I get during the summer. I know we're sometimes a little bit tired from teaching, but I always find it to be very beneficial. And it seems like this past year, for whatever reasons, maybe my mindset was a little bit better, maybe because of COVID-19 and I was doing so much online teaching that I was able to not only increase my aptitude and my ability with technology, which was a plus with all of this online teaching, but I also was able to gain better knowledge and skills for myself and be able to take that and apply it for my students and knowing how to more effectively teach mathematics. And so I thought I would go ahead and share with you some of the tricks of the trade that I learned from my professional development with the hopes that you too will share this information with others that you come in contact with, other colleagues at your school too. And so we can all learn from each other. And so a lot of my remarks in this lesson come from a professor that teaches at University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, and she is in the math department. Her name is Dr. DeAnn, I believe it's pronounced Huinker, Huinker. And so I was really, really impressed with what she taught me. And today I thought I would share that with you. And so this is the gist of our lesson is knowing how to take what she taught and apply it to our everyday lessons. And so this here is a sample of how I would apply it, but I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead just a little bit and show you what she considers effective mathematical teaching practices. And this comes from the NAEP, which I started my lesson with. This is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And she works in a committee with a group of people who come up with these different effective teaching frameworks. And she was able to share that information with me and my school district. And so I thought I'd share it with you. So just so you know what the NAEP does, they're a common measure of student achievement, and they assess what U.S. students need to know and can do in various subject areas. Well, today it just happens to be in mathematics. I'm going to go ahead and close the blinds for just a minute. I'm in creating these lessons, and I don't want it to be too bright. There we go. Sorry for that interruption. So anyways, this is an effective teaching framework, and let's just kind of browse through this briefly, and then we'll apply it to one of the lessons that I'm going to be teaching my students, which is fun to be able to take what we learn and actually apply it. That is always a successful way to teach. And so the first thing is to establish mathematic goals to focus learning. So I don't know about you, but I like to always let my students know what we'll be learning today. And it's always nice to post the I can statements in your class so that the students know too, so they're not surprised, and so that they can be prepared with some background knowledge and better understanding than just outright confusion sometimes as they learn different math concepts. So the next thing to do to be effective is to implement tasks that promote reasoning and problem-solving skills and to build procedural fluency from conceptual understandings. And then this is where the whole process goes down or is put into practice. We need to facilitate meaningful mathematical discourse. This is what we're teaching our students here. And we teach them how to be able to talk, have effective communication as they speak about math concepts, by, as teachers, posing purposeful questions. As teachers, as we use and connect mathematical representations in our lessons, and we teach them how to make representations to solve their questions, their math problems. We need to elicit and use evidence of student thinking. So we need to ask our students to represent what they're thinking in their work and be able to share it and to debate about it in effective ways, and to support productive struggle in learning mathematics. It's okay to have students struggle a little bit, not to the point of utter frustration, but it's very good for students to have experiences where they get a little frustrated, they make mistakes, but they can learn from their mistakes or learn from others and develop some resilience in learning math. Okay, so now let's take these effective math practices. This is in the word form instead of a graphic organizer. Each of the steps that I'll be showing you through a math lesson that I'm going to do with my students. And so again, for me, I know that in teaching kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth grades, and even some fifth grade, that I noticed that students get confused and a little frustrated in having to solve story problems for whatever reasons. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's a comprehension issue. I know in the primary grades, a lot of times they're still trying to figure out how to read, and sometimes some of the story problems can be challenging, or if it's just that they can't relate it to themselves, it just has no meaning to them, or it's just a foreign language. And so I just thought it would be fun as a teacher to incorporate these effective math teaching practices into one of the lessons that I'll be sharing with my students. And if you want to also use my lesson with your students, I would gladly share this with you. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is state the math objective at the beginning of my lesson. And I'm going to tell them that we're going to be looking for keywords in our story problems that will help us to know how to solve our story problems properly. And so I would show them these anchor charts. For addition, these are the key words that they would be looking for within those sentences. The words like altogether, join, plus, sum, add, both, total, increase, and all are combined are keywords that tell you that the students would be doing the operation of addition. Now, if the students see these types of words, then they would know that they would be needing to subtract the facts in that story problem. Words like take away, decrease, less, minus, left, subtract, difference, take away, fewer, or how many more. Those are the key words that tell your students that they will be subtracting the numbers. Okay? Well, these words tell your students that they will be multiplying those numbers together. Words such as twice, times, groups of, per, double, each, equal groups, multiplier all together. So those are keywords for multiplication. These are keywords for division: divide, each, between, cut up, share, half, divided by, and how many in each. And I underlined this because this phrase here, this four-word phrase, is used in a story problem that I would be sharing with my students. And so the second step of effective math teaching practice would be to have my students implement tasks that require problem solving. I said problem solving, sorry. Problem solving. And so I would give them a story problem. And then also I would ask my students to use representations to show their thought process. And so I would give them a story problem similar to this. This is Derek. And it says, my sister gave me drawing paper for my birthday. There were 32 sheets. I want you to make it last for 8 days. And so your mission would be to find how many sheets Derek can use each day if he uses the same number of sheets each day. And then you could have the students go back through each of the anchor charts, searching, for what would they be doing with those numbers. You would also want to tell them to make sure that they're using the 4 steps of problem solving, and the first step of which is to understand it. And so that's where they would be underlining their facts that they're going to be using, and then they would look for the keywords, which I've highlighted here, to decide what operation they would be doing or using, what plan they would come up to solve it. And it's located right here. How many sheets in each? How many sheets in each, if they were for each day? And so then you could you would have your students try to take this information. They understood it. They came up with a plan. Now they would have to show you how they would solve it, and then have them take it to the next level, check their work. That's step number 4. So first step is to understand, which this process is here. Then they're supposed to, secondly, come up with a plan. The plan is which operations to use, and they would use these keywords to decide which operation to use. Thirdly, they're supposed to solve it. So I would have them show me the equation for solving it. And fourth, they were supposed to check their work. That's where they would want to use, like the third step here of our effective math teaching practice. That's where you would have them check their work through using a representation. I'll be showing you some different types of representations too, if you're not familiar with how to have them show representations. But if you're having them do division, it would be having them check their answer using inverse operation, being able to explain it to someone through drawing equal groups with 8 groups being the equal groups, and then dividing out the 32 sheets to find out your answer, which is how many sheets per day. Okay. And so again, these are all of the steps. So right now we're up to the representations, and then after they're done, it's that math talk time, which is a very important time with our teaching practices. It's time to get the kids talking about it. Let them figure it out with each other. They can meet with a group and try to defend how they solved it, listen to how other students solved it, because truly there's not just one way to not one way to solve a math problem to get that correct answer. It's really important for you, the teacher, to be able to pose purposeful questions and bring meaning into it. And so the kids are excited and motivated to want to solve these kind of math problems. We also want them to develop procedural fluency, so they have the background knowledge, the confidence, and some insight into knowing how to solve these problems, both conceptually and with a procedure. And as a teacher, it's important that we support them. We provide them with scaffolding and some support as they struggle through learning new concepts. And then ask that your students show evidence and are able to use their evidence to support their thinking. And so that goes with that math talk. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. So again, this is what the recommended practices are as instituted by the NAEP. So fourthly, have students discuss how they would use the math keywords to help them solve their story problems. Because our goal is about using keywords, part of my discussion time, my math talk time, I would have the students explain in the story problem how they came up with the plan by using these keywords. And if you had to go back through and read some keywords with them to help them know what their plan was, then that would be okay too if they're not quite there yet. Okay, what is a math talk group? How do we do these number talks? How do we make that a goal for our students? Well, first off, you want to tell your students to be flexible in their thinking, that they are not the only ones with the correct answer on how to solve things, that we need to be flexible and realize that there's different ways to solve these math problems. And we encourage our students to explore new ways of thinking. That's a positive thing. And that we are able to communicate using vocabulary, academic vocabulary for math with each other. And so that would be part of our daily learning daily knowledge is using mathematical terms so that we can effectively communicate and collaborate with each other. And then number 4 is developing confidence in our mental math skills, in our fluency skills, so that when we share with each other that we're not embarrassed, but we know we can do it. And so these are the things you would want to talk with your students about. What are your expectations? Well, this is the hard one for me, is I hate to have my students struggling, and I like to make sure that they're feeling positive and confident, but I need to create a little bit longer wait time, that I don't want to readily be the one that gives the students the answers. I want my students to develop confidence in their ability to come up with their own answers and to be able to write down the student responses on the board. This creates great communication, that we can look and see how different students think and what their answers might be. And that as a teacher, that we ask those correct questions that get the students wanting to probe a little bit deeper and dive a little bit deeper in their thought process, and then to be able to restate the answers that the students get effectively. This is what the students would be doing. That's what are their expectations. Well, they need a silent think time to solve things in their mind if it's required of them to use mental math skills. They could also give you a thumbs up when they have an answer. And when each of you agree, you can do the hang loose, I guess, sign. And when you disagree, it's okay to give someone thumbs down. But that would just be the nonverbal communication that allows your class to effectively communicate with each other during your math think times. Okay, so I talked a little bit about how do we represent our numbers effectively? So this is a diagram that I got specifically from the keynote speaker during my summer professional development on increasing my mathematical teaching practices. And these came from Dr. DeAnn Huinker. So she created this diagram to help our students. And these are the different ways that you can teach your students to represent their numbers. She says, have them draw it, write it with numbers, talk about it, write a story like their own story problem, or build it with manipulatives. So these are some ways to encourage your students to develop that confidence and their ability to communicate mathematical concepts effectively and procedurally. Okay, this is a quick check, and this is an example of what you might be able to do with your students too, as you're trying to remember to give your students think time to figure things out on their own. That's called productive struggle time. And then always praise them afterwards. It's okay to say, good job, smart cookie, or to tell them to pat themselves on the back and say, good job, smart cookie. It's so important for students to not only hear praise from their teacher, but to inwardly do that to themselves and be aware that they're resilient and they can solve these kind of problems. And so this is an example of what you might do with your students. You'd say, okay, find the answer to 4 times 7. And these are the important questions that you would want to say as a teacher. You'd say, well, explain how you figured that answer out, either orally or using diagrams. And so you can choose or have them come up with 2 different ways to explain how they figured their answer. You might say, draw a picture that shows that. Or you can tell them to write a story prompt, so you can be very explicit with them too. And the most important thing is, as a teacher, to teach your students to have confidence in themselves by saying, do not give up, or donut give up, in this case with it being a little donut. And so as we help our students develop their math fluency, it will help them to naturally have the drive that they need to successfully solve these more challenging math problems that they're going to have to face in the upper grades too. So it's important as primary grade teachers that we help our math students to develop confidence and that resilience that they need for the time they get into a calculus class. And it's very challenging. And so it all starts on these at a foundational level with our math skills. And so one of the ways to help students develop confidence, of course, is to develop math fluency. And so I'm sharing just really quickly. I'm not going to take time to elaborate too much about it, but these are some fun things that I found on the internet that I thought maybe your students would enjoy. So you could use number strings, and it says multiply the numbers using mental math. And so to just help them develop that math fluency that they need, and remembering the importance of zeros and how we take the zeros off to solve it. So it'd be 6 times 5 is 30, add the 2 zeros. Or you could have them do, for 6 times 512, you'd want them to use the distributive property of multiplication, where they decompose their numbers and are able to solve things in their head and then add those numbers together. So those are great strategies to use. And so the more that they do it, the easier it gets. And then these numbers aren't so overwhelming. And you can see, if you give the student 4,812 divided by 4, you would want your students to naturally just start to think about, well, what's 4,000 divided by 4? What's 800 divided by 4? And what's 12 divided by 4? Realizing that these numbers here are just the expanded form of this number. And so when students see the patterns in math and are able to break apart big numbers into smaller size numbers that are doable, the sky's the limit with these students. They love this stuff. So here's another number string that you could use with your students, or you could play alike or different and give them questions that they have to solve and be able to use the different operations to help with their fluency skills. True and false. And then to just show them different ways and have students show different ways of solving the same problem to get the same answer, but not doing it the same ways. And this is an example of what that might look like. And then this, in closing, I just wanted to show you a fun math game. I have some that I use in my class, but this is a different one that I haven't used yet that I'm soon to use to have students really start to think about different numbers. For example, the number 36, you'd give them a number of one-digit numbers and then have them play with the numbers and see different ways of adding and subtracting to come up with 36. And this is, can you make it? And so I would encourage you to make math really fun by using effective math teaching practices. And I hope that your students have as much fun as my students are having in my class this year. And I'm sure that they are. And I would just encourage you to take what I've taught you today and apply it in just a simple way. And so until next time, colleagues, I hope that you enjoy your time as a teacher. You are so powerful in the lives of your students, and you truly do make a difference in the lives of each one of your students. So until next time, keep smiling, and bye-bye.